What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, coach of your Montreal Milotic, bringing you our draft analysis for the SDL, the Sinnoh Draft League. It is finally time. Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl are out, and I've been MIA for a while. Yeah, if you guys have been following on Twitch, I've been streaming all of the Draft League games I've been playing over there. Those are Twitch exclusives, which will eventually be going up into the movie format on the channel. But it's been a while since our last Draft League game here and the last upload in general. But we are back. We are here for another draft analysis. Today I'm going to be showing you what my team is going to be for the Sinnoh Draft League, a points-based draft league for Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. We are trying to do this. It is not an upload required league, so not all the coaches will be uploading, but at the end of the day, I do feel like having this experience will help you guys learn, maybe see if this format is even playable, because it may not be. If you guys didn't know the way this format's going to work, 95 points, we get to draft a team of, I think it is 10 to 12 Pokemon, and we are going to go with the bare minimum that we possibly can. As we pretty much always do. At the same time, we have to build a team that is going to be used to compete against our opponent's team of 10 to 12 Pokemon every single week. Those Pokemon that we have, they stay, and the team my opponent has will change as the opponent changes, and whichever team ends up with the best record in the league ends up being first in the playoffs, and then we have an actual playoffs, single elimination, best of one, and the winner takes home the title. But guys, this is the draft analysis. We cover what we drafted and why. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And of course, before we do, just make sure subscribe if you haven't already, because we are going to be releasing tons of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl Pokemon content, but at the same time, also going back to Sword and Shield for some more continuation of the draft league stuff over there. Make sure to stick around if you haven't already. Now, we had the 12th overall pick out of how many coaches? Oh yeah, 12. So we had the worst draft spot, according to some people. Some people could take broken stuff, like Latios. We did not. I think Latios actually got banned. But the first overall pick, just to give you a bit of an idea, was, I think, Salamence. No, it was Gliscor. Mew, Gliscor, Salamence, like the top 3 picks. Clefable as well, really good. Infernape went top 5. And I had to go for the scraps, as we'll call them. And they weren't that bad. For 15 points, our first pick was going to be Jirachi. Now, Jirachi in a standard format would be great if this thing had Iron Head. If it kept Iron Head, I would have no doubt it would have been maybe a top 3 to 7 pick. But no, it lost it. And that really hurts it, because it's a really reliable flinching mechanism that can just basically be 60% of the time to flinch your opponents. And now a Scarf set becomes a lot less viable. It's still a really good Pokemon, I'm not going to lie, but its only good options for steel type attacks are going to be, what, Flash Cannon and Doom Desire. And that's it. Its coverage is still really good, and I'll argue that one of the worst things about it as well, outside of losing Iron Head, is losing the access to the elemental punches. Having no way now to hit Scizor sucks. No way to hit Ferrothorn if it was in the game sucks. Fortress sucks. But it's still a really good Pokemon. It gets momentum, which I really like to have on my teams. It's a Steel type, which is amazing. A Dragon Resist, super important because Dragons run this format. Even though Garchomp and Latios are banned, they're still really good in the format. It gets Recovery and Wish, it gets Stealth Rocks, it gets Status, it gets Trick. It's just a really good, versatile Pokemon that starts me off as basically a position where I can do anything with my draft. And I decided to pair it with Pokemon that, in theory, works really well with it, as the Flinch brothers, as you want to call them. But it cannot flinch either. Well, this thing can't flinch, but this thing, Jirachi, will not flinch very much. But we are pairing it with Togekiss. Now, I have my Rocker, I have a Defogger, I have a Steel type, I have a Fairy type, I have a Pokemon that is immune to ground type attacks for my Jirachi. Jirachi also resists the Ice and Rock type attacks that are becoming the way of the Togekiss, which is awesome. So we have a pretty good synergy here, and at the same time, both of them get access to Baton Pass, or Momentum and U-Turn, one or the other, which is very nice. Both get access to Wish, both get access to just forms of recovery, which is amazing. At the same time, the coverage that Togekiss has is very nice. It didn't really lose anything in terms of coverage. Air Slash is still there, Ancient Power, Aura Sphere, Dazzling Gleam is nice, of course, Flamethrower, Extreme Speed if you want to be that guy, Grass Knot, cool, and it gets screens on top of that as well, which is very, very awesome. It did lose Boots, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, it gained a lot of things because everything else lost Boots. But this is one of the flying types that does have access to Roost and recovery options, which puts it a tier above everyone else, in my opinion. And we did spend 13 points on this, so 28 points gone for our first 2 picks. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with how they went. Did we get something absolutely insanely broken? No, but we built a really solid core to start that we can then build around as we go, which I think is also extremely important. Our next mon is going to be our Drapion. Now, Drapion is really interesting because in theory, you wouldn't draft this as your 3rd overall pick, but we did here. And the reason for it is because look at the pool of poison types. Look at the pool of dark types. They kind of suck, I'll be honest. So we decided to get our grounded poison now, which does get T-Spikes, which is amazing. And it also is our dark type. So opposing psychic types are going to have a really hard time against me. And this is arguably one of the 3 to 4 best dark types in the game, which is really saying something, I'm not going to lie. considering that Drapion is one of the best ones there. But either way, it only has one weakness, that is to ground, and Togekiss does help cover that. Obviously, we have a compounding weakness now with Jirachi, but I feel like we have a really good way to support the rest of our team outside of these 3 Pokemon. Is Drapion going to come every week? No, but I felt it was super important to have what it provides to the team early enough in the draft, being a top, a 3rd pick for us. So I decided to go with it here. It does get access to knockoff, which is important. A lot of Pokemon lost knockoff. I'm looking at you, Weavile. And the fact that it has that, the fact that it has coverage and Poison Jab and Earthquake in the Elemental Fangs is nice. Earthquake, Rock Slide, also very cool, is pretty important. And of course, Toxic Spikes can't hurt anyone at all. And it is a really good setup sweeper with Agility and with Swords Dance on top of that too. Just a really solid mon overall, and gives me a speed tier at 95, which bridges the gap between Togekiss at base 80 and Jirachi at base 100. Our next pick on the wheel here is going to be 12-point Heracross. I was having a really hard time deciding what I want to take over here. I could have taken something like a Blaziken, but I decided to go, and that's regular Blaziken, by the way, not Speed Boost. But I could have taken something like regular Blaziken here and been pretty happy. But I decided to go with Heracross because having Guts is incredible. This thing can just basically come in on something slower than it, and if it's burnt, Guts Facade is going to get killed. It's going to claim so many lives, and I really need that for this team. Having a Pokemon that can just break things down immediately is super important, considering that my other Pokemon aren't as powerful offensively. They're not insane wall breakers like Heracross is. It lost the ability to set up spikes now, which really hurts it because in Gen 8 it did have access to that, but it does still keep a lot of the coverage options. Close Combat, access to Earthquake, Mega Horn, it's access to Night Slash here as well, Rock Slide as well on top of that. Just a couple of really good moves that are going to be run pretty consistently with Heracross. It's got a couple really good abilities. The most common ones are going to be Guts or Moxie. Moxie's really good on a Scarf set, and Guts is insane on a set that might be, let's say, an Assault Vest set, if you want to run that, or of course, a Flame Orb set, of course. And it can just really snowball really quickly, and if a team is a bit slower than 85, they're going to have a really hard time switching in and taking hits from Heracross. It's going to be an absolute slaughter when this thing hits the field. And we have a team that has a lot of momentum, which can support Heracross in doing that. Our next mon, I needed something that was going to, number 1, help me deal with bulky waters, but number 2, I needed more answers to ground types or immunities to ground types. So we decided to go with one of the Rotom forms, and that is going to be Rotom Heat. I did not want to go with Rotom Wash. I feel like Rotom Wash, as good as it is, and even though we lost Boots, I understand that Rotom Heat is still really solid. It gets Nasty Plot, which is amazing, helps kind of mitigate the downside of the overheat, of course. It lost Defog, it lost Pain Split, which both really suck, but it does get access to screens. It's got a nice speed tier at 86. So far, slowest mon is at base 80, which is kind of nice. And then it also gets access to the coverage options that we're so accustomed to with Rotom. The Dark Pulses, the Hexes, the Overheat, and the Voltage. Not super diverse, but good enough to the point where you can run a lot of things and pretty much have a different set every week. You're not going to run the same exact moves every time. It's going to be Volt Switch pretty much every time. Maybe a Thunderbolt, maybe an Overheat. It's going to be Nasty Plot possibly. An Assault Vest set can be really solid here, but you're also going to be running your status options, your Thunder Waves, your Toxi? No, it doesn't get Toxic, never mind me. And Will-O-Wisp, of course. So those are the pretty common ones to be running here. Rotom's just a solid mon overall, really bulky, and pairs really good with not the next mon, but the mon after that, because we do want to have Wish to support this thing so we can keep it healed up. And it is another pivot Pokemon, which is awesome. Our next mon is going to be another physical offensive Pokemon. I want to have more of this, and I need to have a rocker and a ground type. So I decided to go with one of the best ones available. At 9 points, we decided to grab Rhyperior. Rhyperior is super solid mon. I've used it before in the past, had a lot of fun with it. Did it lose anything really in this format? Not much. I believe it lost the Elemental Punches, if I'm not mistaken, but it still has the Elemental Fangs, which is kind of, I guess, something. And in the pinch where we need to run like a fire move, we can always run Fire Fang or Flamethrower or Fire Blast even if we absolutely need to. Yes, it has Piss Poor 55 base special attack compared to 140 attack, but it still is something. The abilities are going to be running most often on this, probably going to be Solid Rock. I don't really see where Reckless comes into play because the crash moves that I have, I don't think it's like anything worth my while, maybe like Double Edge and that's it. Solid Rock is super great because it's going to do 75%. The damages from super effective attacks are going to do 75% damage instead of 100%, which is awesome. And we can definitely take advantage of that because something like a Grass Knot is going to do a ton of damage for me. If that thing doesn't have a ton of special attack or a stab option for it, then we're going to live the Grass Knot. Same thing with the Random Skull. It's just very nice to have. No weakness policy, which kind of sucks a bit, takes away a bit of the offensive pressure from this thing, especially with a potential Rock Polish set, but it is still very good, and it is my second rocker, basically meaning that Jirachi does not have to run rocks every week, which I think is super important. We want Jirachi to have a lot of flexibility, and I think this team does that a lot. And for 9 points, honestly, I'm not mad at it at all. Very important Pokemon. It is a electric immunity, which my team desperately needed, and at the same time, it helps out a lot with those electric types in terms of taking the hits but dishing out the damage as well. Not a lot has coverage for the dual stab of Rhyperior. Our next mon, again, this was on the wheel, I believe. This is actually the next wheel. We decided to go ahead and grab Vaporeon. Now, Vaporeon I think is super great. Having Water Absorb is amazing. It lost quite a bit though. It lost access to Flip Turn, which I don't like at all. The fact that Flip Turn is missing this thing really hurts it. I love having momentum on my Pokemon, and Flip Turn, just the inclusion of that move, makes me happy. But it does have Baton Pass, so it is a really good second option. But what really hurts it is the loss of Toxic. This Pokemon usually ran Toxic on maybe, let's say, like 65% of its movesets, because it's its best way to do damage. Yes, it has Scald, yes, it has Ice Beam, Blizzard, all these moves there, but it's not the best option for a Vaporeon. Most of the time, you want Toxic, you want to then Wish, Protect, start stalling around, and get as much health back as you can while whittling down your opponents till they're in the range of the other threats on your team, which this team would be so very happy if Vaporeon could do those things. But we don't have that. We have Vaporeon so we can handle water types, which right now my team has a hard time dealing with. At this point in time, I believe I don't have a single water resist on the roster, which is not great, and we have multiple weaknesses. Having Vaporeon with Water Absorb is huge. The Wish support that it's going to provide me is going to be amazing, especially passing off a slow Baton Pass rather, into a Pokemon catching a Wish is going to be very nice for our team, especially think of this like a Rhyperior, like a Rotom. They had a hard time dealing with them before, they're going to have to deal with them again now, which is going to hurt them even more. Also, I mentioned before, my speed tiers, I had base 80 as my lowest speed tier. Now I have base 65, which means that something is going to have to run like, I don't know, it won't be run Adamant Nature as confidently. Let's say if it's around base 70 to base, let's say 75, okay? It's just important to have that speed tier, and we do have it now, which I like very much so. Our next Mon. I did not think I was going to draft this thing, but I did. And I'm kind of happy I did because it gives me a way to deal with bulky waters, because right now my electric type is beaten by bulky waters because it is part fire. But we have Abomasnow, which is super great. It does not get access to Freeze Dry. I think Freeze Dry was cut from the game, but it does get Roar Veil, which is awesome. Having Veil, just the presence of it makes my opponent have to prep. Are they going to bring Defog? Are they going to bring Brick Break? What is going to be the play here? And yes, Abomasnow is not the best mon in the world, and yes, Hail is not the best weather in the world, but it's still a really solid option for me to have just as a backup in case we need something. If we need residual chip damage, we can get access to it with Hail. If we want priority, Ice Shard is there. The coverage this thing gets is pretty good. It gets access to really good options for fighting. Focus Blast and Brick Break, of course, are there. You have Grass Knot and Giga Drain. You have access to Wood Hammer on the physical side, Blizzard. What else is there on the physical side? Avalanche, I think, Ice Punch, Ice Shard as well, super nice. And then, of course, you have Earthquake as one of the most staple moves out there. It does suck a lost Earth Power, but it's not the end of the world because you do get Leech Seed, which is awesome. And I think having this Pokemon around for 5 points, just the value it provides, the prep that it forces, I think is really important, and it forces everyone to say, do I have a Fire type or a Fighting type that can handle this thing? Yes, it has so many weaknesses, but most of the time they're going to say, oh yeah, Fire or Fighting, those are what I'm going to use. That's what I'm going to use to beat down this Pokemon. And this is also just a ground killer, and my team right now, the first few picks I have, pretty weak to ground. This thing will help me deal with those opposing ground types. I like it a lot. I think it's a solid Pokemon. Not the best in terms of speed, only base 60, but again, helps us out because it can be pretty offensive and forces those Pokemon in that 75 range to run a Jolly Nature instead of an Adamant Nature, which is pretty important. My team is super slow, very slow. We have our fastest Mon at base 100, which is not great, so we decided to get something with above base 100, and we needed a normal type still. I really wanted to look at Tauros, I think for like 4 points, but the issue with Tauros is that it lost a lot. It lost Body Slam, which is huge. It has to run Rock Climb now as its best option to take advantage of Sheer Force with Life Orb, and it's just not as good, nowhere near as good, because it has a high chance to miss, like 10% chance to miss, which is not great. It really just changes a lot of the usefulness of this Pokemon. But we decided to go with something that I think will have a lot of utility in multiple different areas. My opponents have webs, well, we have Defiance. They have a Fire or Ice type, we have Thick Bat. Guess what the Pokemon is? It is Purugly. Purugly is being drafted for like the first time ever. Who would consider drafting this Pokemon? I know I wouldn't have, but I did now. So this Pokemon, having access to so many different abilities that are all useful. In Own Tempo, which is immune to Intimidate now, Thick Bat being resisting the Fire and Ice types coming my way, and of course Defiance, which will help me in case of defogs, in case of webs, in case of random intimidates, whatever. I can then use this to take advantage of that, which I think is amazing here. So what do I think we're going to use Purugly for? Well, number one, it gets U-turn. It's fast at base 112, so I can outspeed a lot of things. Fake Out Last Resort is a thing. It gets access to, I believe it gets Sucker Punch, and I think it gets Knockoff. It does not get Knockoff, unfortunately. That might have been something that got cut out, but it does get Play Rough, and it does get Shadow Claw, and it gets U-turn, which is what I really wanted it for. And of course, Taunt is just nice to have as an option on a fast Pokemon. It's not super bulky, base 71 HP, 64 defense, and 59 special defense, but it can take hits from fire types, from ice types with Thick Bat, and if I invest correctly, I don't need to have any attack investment. I can use this as a pivot and force things into tough positions, because maybe they're going to think, hey, he might be the Fake Out Last Resort set. We don't want to deal with that. And they might be in trouble. So yeah, that's going to be our Purugly. Very interesting Pokemon. Now, next up, I saw this Pokemon in the 3 points here. I'm like, why is it in the 3 points here? It makes no sense to me. This thing gets Intimidate and it gets Webs. I am talking about Masquerain. Now, Masquerain, you might think, what the hell? Masquerain, why? Again, U-turn, which I love. Roost, amazing. Intimidate, very nice. Yes, boots are a thing, but this thing also, on top of that, gets access to Quiver Dance still. We still have a Quiver Dancer in the 3 points here, and its speed isn't that bad. It's base 80. I get up a Quiver Dance or 2, and it's game over. I can just win, and that's amazing. I love that. I think this Pokemon is super underrated and probably will be a lot higher in the BDSP meta. If you guys have a chance to draft it, do it, because its coverage as well is kind of insane. I'm going to read off a bit for you. Air Slash, Blizzard, Bug Buzz, Energy Ball, Giga Drain, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Quiver Dance, like I said before, Scald, Shadow Ball, Webs, U-turn, Stun Spore, just so many options. I'm really excited to use this thing. I think it's going to be an absolute steal, probably the steal of the draft, to be honest, from everyone's teams, and I think you guys can have a fun time seeing what we can do with this Pokemon. And then finally, I didn't know what I want to take, but I want to have some more support for water types, because again, my water type answers are right now a Vaporeon, which doesn't hit it for great damage, a Rotom, which takes super effective damage, and then a Abomasnow, which is going to be very, very situational in the matchup that it comes. So we decided to go with Lantern, which I am surprised lasted this long, because I'm trying to think about what it lost, and it didn't lose very much. It has Volt Absorb, it also has Water Absorb, which is awesome. It gets access to Volt Switch, it gets access to Ice Beam, it gets access to Scald, it gets access to Discharge, Dazzling Gleam, all these moves here, and that's great. It loses Toxic, I believe, but that's not super necessary. It's nice to have, but it's not super necessary, which again is key. I like this Pokemon as a pivot. I like it as an immunity to either electric or water, because again, Rhyperior, as nice as it is to have a really bulky ground type, I think it's just not as imposing because it has 2 4x weaknesses to grass and to water. At least this way, I have a Pokemon that's not 4x weak to grass, it's only 2x weak to grass, and it's not going to die to a single grass knot like Rhyperior would. Either way, very happy with Lantern. Guys, this is going to be my team. Let me know which Pokemon you think will be the MVP of the team itself for this entire season. We're doing, I believe it is going to be 9 weeks or 7 weeks long, something along those lines. But we're going to be uploading this league every single week. So make sure to stick around for that. The first battle will be going up tomorrow. I'm actually streaming it on Twitch, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing that going forward or not, but if you guys want to join the chat, you definitely can do that. It'd be a lot of fun. And I'm still deciding if I want to do the layout or not. We might. We'll see how it goes, but I feel for right now, I'm having a lot of fun streaming on Twitch, so if you guys want to join, twitch.tv/MattOshea, link is always in the description. Also, you can join the Discord server. It is the Ocean. We have a lot of fun in there. Make sure to join, of course, if you're interested in extra content and a bit more behind-the-scenes stuff, of course. And then finally, guys, make sure to check out the other coaches. The link is down in the description. Like, subscribe to all that great stuff, and I will see you all tomorrow.